Good evening. My name is Faisal Khatib, and I'm here with Dru Wischhover of Enterprise Title.
Hello.
We are with Better Informed Housing. Better Informed Housing is devoted to providing education information to communities. We are located at 218 North Jefferson, Suite 103, Chicago, Illinois 60661. Our phone number is 312-533-2688, and you can email us at neighbors@betterinformed.org. Our website is betterinformed.org, and you can find us at, again, betterinformed.org, Better Informed Housing Corporation. We're here to build, save, and help communities. So we're here today with Dru Wischhover. Thanks for coming, Dru.
Thanks for having me.
If this is a live call, so if you want to call us and ask any questions, feel free to do so. You can call us at 312-738-1060. That's the number at the bottom of your screen. So, Dru, we're here to talk about title. And I guess the biggest question that I have, that I get, is why do I need a title company and what's the point? So just to kind of clarify that, I'm
Sure.
I want to sell a property, I want to sell my house. Why not just do a quick claim deed or and just sign a deed and hand it over to the buyer? Or in retrospect, I'm a buyer. Why not just take somebody's deed to the property? Why do I need you to get in the middle of this deal?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and you absolutely scared me with I'll just take a deed and we'll just kind of go from there, because certainly we would never recommend that. And just a little bit about, title insurance. It's something that's probably the biggest question I get asked is, what is it, and why do we have it, and what's the purpose for it, and why are we doing this? And really, title insurance is totally different than any other insurance that you think of, because when you guys typically think of insurance, you think of fire insurance, auto insurance, health insurance, life insurance. All of those things deal with the future, and title insurance deals with everything from the past. So title insurance is going to protect a buyer and a seller against loss. And believe me, there is loss in the housing market, and these things are losses and damages that can occur. So we as a title company are out there issuing insurance policies on real estate to protect you guys against loss. So it's something that everybody understands is necessary, but nobody knows what it is.
So just let's ask a few questions
Sure,
here. Let's kind of
sure.
take this apart. So you said you're talking about the past. What did you mean by title insurance? Title insurance is actually insuring the past. Can you explain that?
Sure, absolutely. Whereas with health insurance, you're looking to say, well, if I get sick, I have insurance in place to comfort me and take care of those bills. Whereas with title insurance, the process of that transferring of the land, the selling and transferring of that land throughout the period of time that has existed, is what we're insuring. That the rightful owner, or the person who says that they're owning that property, has the right to sell that property to you as a buyer. So we're going to go all the way back to the past to say all of the transactions that have happened on your parcel, your subject property, has been done correctly. And we're insuring that going forward.
So we talked about on several programs, if you've been watching the show for a while, we've talked about the bundle of sticks. Right? So it's a classic, I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes.
But the bundle of
Yes.
sticks is the different types of property rights that exist on a property. So, for example, a mortgage is a stick in that bundle, giving the bank a mortgage, or actually living in the property. I didn't say owning the property or having a lease of the property. Actually living in the property or being in possession of the property is a stick. Having a lease is a stick. So, based on this, so if I'm understanding, the title company goes back and looks at all the sticks that have been passed out to everybody.
Correct.
And makes sure the person who's giving the seller who's going to give those sticks to, for example, me as a buyer, is giving me all the sticks that I'm supposed to get. Is that
Absolutely.
a good way of putting it?
So yeah, maybe even to simplify that more, we're going to go through the research, and we're going to gather a thorough examination of the sticks.
Where they all went.
Where they all went. who touched them, who divulged them to whom. And we're going to go through all of those pieces and say, you know what, through the process of the number of years that this parcel has existed, all of those sticks have been transferred properly. And I'm going to ensure that the buyer now has rightful ownership of that property, and the seller who sold it to you was in a good place to do it.
And so all the sticks that I'm supposed to get, you give me insurance to make sure I get those sticks.
Correct.
So, for example, a loss you were talking about would be, let's say I've got all these sticks, and then I show up at the property and there's somebody in the house or somebody in the property.
Right.
Or
Right.
somebody comes to me 6 months later and says, you owe me money because I did work on this property and you haven't paid me, right?
Right.
So that would be a type of loss?
Absolutely. The losses that are incurred when it comes to real estate versus the losses that are incurred with some of the other insurances are real, and they're great. I mean, take the value of a home. If it's a $150,000 home and somebody is claiming rightful ownership to that house,
Okay.
the protection is for that $150,000. I mean, you can potentially lose your home without title insurance because how do you prove it? How do you
Wow.
prove the ownership?
And I might have a deed, but the deed is fake or fraudulent
Right.
or it's not complete.
It's out there every day.
Because it's just a piece of paper that somebody signed. There's
Absolutely.
nothing that actually guarantees that paper.
Absolutely.
So if I'm buying a property and going to put some work into it, I could end up buying the property, rehabbing it or fixing it, and spending all this money on it,
Yes.
and then finding out that I don't really own it. And I
Absolutely.
fixed somebody else's property.
Absolutely. That's
Oh, wow.
something that we come across relatively often, and that's not an uncommon question is, when will I ever use this? Well, the example that you just gave is with fraud running as amok as it is, somebody comes in and deeds are easy to generate. People can generate a fraudulent deed and get it recorded and all of a sudden say, well, I own your property. Without title
Wow.
insurance, you have no recourse to going back to proving that. And the title insurance policy is all inclusive. It's for it's you're insured for the value of your home. There's two types of title insurance. There's
Okay.
lender's insurance, which
Okay.
covers the lender against loss, which they're going to require if you have a mortgage to get. And then there is owner's insurance, which covers you as the owner. You
So-
only pay for it once also. It's not like you're paying for a premium every month.
It's just a one-time
It's a
one-
one-time fee and you're done.
And that's usually paid for by the buyer or
The seller.
So the seller pays the owner's insurance.
Correct. So the seller says, you know what, I am insuring you that I am transferring this property with no liens and encumbrances, and I'm going to do that rightfully with paying for your owner's insurance going forward, that if there's any issues that come across with this property, you're covered.
So it's like when they buy me a home warranty to make sure that my dishwasher breaks, I can get it fixed.
Right, absolutely.
But in this case,
Absolutely.
it's if the deed breaks, they're going to make sure it gets fixed and I don't.
Absolutely.
And so now you're talking about a lender's policy. So like if I lose the house in foreclosure, does the lender's policy pay out or something? Or
Well, the lender's policy is paying for loss to the lender.
so this is making sure that the lender's first in line.
Correct.
Or in the line that it's supposed to be when when I buy the property.
Correct. So there went through our search and our examination of the tract, which we call the property that you live in.
That's the chain of title from way back when
Correct.
till today.
Public records.
Okay.
Public records. We look through the tract to find out that all the mortgages through the process have been paid off. As the ownership has changed, the older mortgages were paid off. They're not still existing because now your new lender would be in a troubled situation to find out that they were in a second or even worse third position. And that's where that insurance comes into play, that it's going to pay out to them if there's any kind of an issue or loss to them.
So can you tell us any story, or do you have I'm sure you've got a ton of them, but maybe a story of when a buyer had to kick in and ask for the title insurance or asked for a payout on the title insurance
Sure.
and how that handled?
Sure. The story that sticks out probably most frequently is things like building lines and easements. So as part of our process, we're going to ask for a survey to be done of the plot of land.
And so a survey is when you hire a surveyor to come out and actually draw out the corners and points on the property,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And then they'll probably, from when we do the surveys, and correct me if I'm wrong, it'll indicate where there's a fence or where the house sits and where the utility lines are and where the porch may be sitting.
Right.
So it
Decks,
shows
garages.
garages. So it shows everything that's on the property
It does.
drawn out to the almost like to the 10th of a foot, if I remember.
It depicts in detail the entire property from the within the building line, or even if it extends beyond.
Okay.
That's where we get into the claim issue that we were just speaking about earlier.
Okay.
So let's use the example of your garage. You have an easement in the back which is used for a utility easement. It's on the survey, it's noted on the survey, and your garage is now encroaching, which means is on that easement. It's no longer on your property. It's
Oh, wow.
outside the property line. So ComEd now wants to come on and do some work on the property, and they come back and say, I can't get back there because your garage is in the way. And they knock down your garage.
Oh, wow.
What happens?
So now, so the garage is sitting on the easement. So
Right.
the easement, there's no like line on the dirt that says this is an easement.
There's
just-
not. There's no painted markings.
There's no
sir.
painted markings. It's just on the survey. There's an easement allowance for the ComEd to
Yes.
come in.
Yes.
But because there's no marking, the guy before me, or even I may have built my garage to sit on top of this easement, and the easement is underground, or it's the ground itself.
Right.
So
it's just the ground itself.
just the ground itself.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
Right.
So then they tear down my garage.
Right.
Because they need to get to their lines under the ground.
Right. They have a right to work on their power lines. It's in the easement.
So does the easement go all the way up on the building from the floor to the sky, or
The easement exists on the ground path to the access points that are also depicted on a survey. So if there's a pole that is on the back corner of your lot, but it's
Okay.
in the easement, they have to have access to it. You can't build in front of that and block that for access.
they can actually tear down my fence
They
or
can.
push through just to get to it because
They
they have
can.
a right to get access to the easement.
Yep, they can.
And so now here they have, they're tearing down my garage and I'm in full panic, right?
Right, right.
So what do I do?
So first thing most people do is they call their attorney, which is you,
Okay.
and they say, hey, they just tear down my garage. What do I do? Because they forgot they have title insurance. They don't remember that. They don't know. It's
Okay.
stuck in a drawer. And then the attorneys are saying, okay, well, what is on the title policy?
Okay.
What is the restriction? What is the benefit, if any, on that? Because if it's listed on there that there has been an easement or there's an encroachment, and on the policy we'd add an endorsement to say that we're going to insure that, and
Okay.
they knock it down, now you're covered. And that knocking down of that
So
garage,
who's covered?
the owner of the property.
The owner of the property. So by covered, that means you guys, so the title company will pay for replacement of the garage?
Yep, what they will do is they will file a claim, and the title insurance underwriters will get involved, like all underwriters do in insurance companies, and come up with the validity of the circumstance. And therefore, it's out of your hands, and they handle it from there.
So in that regard, it's very similar to property insurance or
Right.
fire insurance or car insurance. You have an adjuster comes out, looks at the damage, and makes an assessment as to what needs to be done in terms
Yep.
of what to repair, and then they cut a check. Or as maybe insurance companies, they'll just dispute the entire charges, but that's a whole nother
Right, that's a whole
another
other
TV
day.
show.
That's
That's
a whole
another
other
TV
day.
show,
Yes, sir.
another thing.
I'll come
But-
back for that.
Yes, but in the meantime, they'll at least that's how we make sure we're protected.
Right.
And if I didn't have insurance, then my garage is gone and I have no protection.
If we did what you said at the beginning of the show, is just took a deed, and I own the house and walked away and said nothing's ever going to happen, you're right. You'd be
Then
out of
I'm
garage.
completely
You'd be out a lot of trouble and burden,
Right.
and you'd have nothing to
show
go
for
for it. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So that's actually pretty fascinating, and it's kind of frightening at the same time. Does it happen a lot where people don't use title companies?
It's actually starting to become a lot less, because I think the educated buyers and sellers out there today are realizing that the potential for loss is great. It's not like there's just a couple few $1,000s. I mean, if with fraud going as it is, you'd be foolish to not. And I don't know that an attorney would really ever suggest that. So the attorneys are counseling these buyers and sellers so much greater today, and steering them in the right direction to doing the right things of protecting themselves. And the cost for this is not great. So the cost versus the loss risk, and the risk being as real as it is, it's not that great. It's when you weigh the two out,
Not worth it.
it's not worth it, Faisal.
So let me ask you this. So if you've got, so in this case, let's say there was a survey. So we had a survey, and would the title company normally insure and provide coverage for a garage that's built on top of an easement?
No, because the garage is a removable object, like fences and garages. But if your building is built over, or if your driveway encroaches on, or I guess, like you said, we can get into another show, but aerial easements. I mean, shared driveways are an issue. There are a lot of things which, like I said, these are all things that are discovered and told at the onset of. Once a contract happens, we do our title search, we provide a title commitment, attorneys review all of this, and they handle all of the circumstances to bringing forth the clarity and clearing title so that upon the closing, we can issue with no problem a title policy to the buyers with full knowledge, knowing that there's no liens and encumbrances. If there are encroachments that are problematic, they are insured over. If they're not problematic, to taking down a fence so the utility company can get in there, it's not a big thing. It's not something the title company may insure.
So you would insure over a problematic easement? So like at the garage on top of the easement, you would insure over that and provide insurance for that?
Certainly.
Really?
Certainly.
Interesting. So what's the liability to, does the attorney carry any liability in these transactions?
Well, here again, that's another subject, that the attorneys today are agents of title companies.
Okay.
So where they carry the liability comes the agreement that they have with us. We are the service provider. We are underwritten by several of them. First American, I'm sure it's a name everybody knows. Fidelity, also known as Chicago Title. Attorneys Title Guarantee Fund. I mean, these are three big insurance companies that we are underwritten by. We've been in business for 35 years. I'm happy to say my dad built this company from the ground up, and the business in the way the companies work today, title insurance companies, is the seller's attorneys are agents of us, the title companies. So they bring their clients to the title company, and they become a issuer of those policies.
So if the policy gets paid out, do the attorneys have to pay out, or
are
they liable?
They are not. It's the insurance company still who is paying it out. The insurance company, just like State Farm, just like MetLife. I mean, they are the payor of the claim.
But if the attorney has a claim, if the attorney made a mistake, or there's an issue with that, or does the attorney waives it, does he carry any responsibility or liability for that?
That's where, so like all insurance companies do, they always look to seek, where can I get it from? So if it's here, the real answer to that question is, if you're in business for as long as we have, and you do the amount of business that we do, they're going to look at this and go, okay, this was a small claim. We're not going to worry about it. We're not going to seek any kind of retribution from the attorney or from the title company, because they submit a lot of premiums to us. If it's a smaller title company, some people who are consistently making mistakes, they're gonna slap the fingers, slap the hands, and truthfully, that's not common. Being in business this long, the amount of claims that we've had is next to zero. If there are any claims against us, they're claims that the title insurance underwriters have found to not be valid.
Now, is that mostly because of how you've cleared title and how the attorneys have cleared title and how you work the process? You've been able to make sure that the mistakes are caught way at the front end as opposed to afterwards.
Most definitely, and that's a something that we pride ourselves in, working so closely with the attorneys and working with the experienced folks that we have to determining that the property is in the condition that we say it is in, that we're not going to do anything prior to closing or during closing and take a risk. We're gonna do the right thing to ensure that the buyers are protected.
So what kind of things will show up on a title search, title policy? I mean, I know we'll see taxes.
Absolutely.
You know what taxes haven't been paid. So
Absolutely.
What about sold taxes? You kind of deal with that, sold taxes. So
Sold
the taxes
taxes
have been sold, you make sure that those get redeemed or paid off, or some sort of settlement for that.
Correct.
And different deed transfers. You talked about building easements or building
lines.
building lines.
Yes.
So So here's I had a question. Where do these easements come from? Where do these setbacks and these lines, I mean, where do these things, I mean, is it something that happens quickly or recently, or is it something that goes way back when?
So these things go back to a long time ago. When we do a thorough examination of the parcel of real estate that we are asked to insure, we order a title search, an abstract title search from a company who will ultimately give us all aspects of that land. There's a building line, there's an easement, there's a utility line, there's a public utility easement, there's so all of that is given to us so we can bring that forward to the title. In a lot of instances, there's been a lot of transformations of properties over the years. We have a database that we can also access to see if there has been title already done on some other properties, so we can use the title searches that have been done or policies that are already out there been issued that have since canceled because the sellers are different now or buyers are different now, and we can come forward with those.
So you can piggyback on old title policies from the last time the property has sold.
That's the benefit, is like I said, this goes from the beginning of time till the time that property is transferred, from the time you as a buyer are contracting to buy that home.
So these easements, so like for example, there's a prescriptive easement or there's an access easement, so right-of-way easement. Now those easements, have those been set up from way back when, or do those usually set up? I mean, what's
new construction? Again, that all comes down to what type of, is this a new development? Is this something when a subdivision is newly constructed, a plat is done, and when they do a plat, a plat is the let's call it, for lack of a better term, it's the survey of the entire project. So let's say there's a 30 or 40 house project that a builder is going to build.
So it's the map of the whole
thing. It's the full map of each lot that they're going to sell and build a home on, and on that we'll have your building lines, their easements, and they'll have agreements in place to say, we're going to allow ComEd to come in here, we're going to allow 25 feet on the back part of all of these lots, because that's where the access point's going to be, because that's how this land lays out for us to build on.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Absolutely.
So any other questions that I should be asking that I haven't asked yet, Drew?
No, I think that if you want to, understanding this is something that is very difficult to do. It's not a touchy-feely thing, and I think that we've covered, just the bare bones of it, but I think we've really given the details of the importance of it. And I think that would be what I would want to emphasize is the importance of this, and not to be talked out of it, because there's simply no way around it. And the loss, I cannot tell you, the loss is great, and it's unfortunate.
So we have a few minutes left.
Sure.
Again, the number is 312-738-1060. This is Better Informed Housing. You can find us online at www.betterinformed.org. We're here to help build the future, save the communities, and help the neighbors. You can contact us after the show at 312-533-2688, or you can email us at neighbors@betterinformed.org. Better Informed Housing Corporation has been devoting its energy to addressing the issue of zombie properties and real estate in general, providing education and information to the community. So, thank you again, Drew, for talking about title issues. And so just a quick summary from what I understand, and for those of us who just tuned in, the issue of title insurance and why would someone want a title insurance is to make sure that if I'm selling a property, that there are no surprises that I'm selling a complete title, all the bundles of sticks, all the property rights to that property to the buyer. But it sounds like the real benefit is also to the buyer, where the buyer is making sure that every right that they're supposed to get in the transaction, they're making sure that they get it, and they're receiving title, and they're receiving every bundle and every stick that goes in that bundle, from ownership to possession to mortgage rights to lease rights and title rights and ownership. All that's coming across, and they're protected to make sure that in the event one of those sticks doesn't come across, they have insurance available that allows them to go back and collect that from an independent third-party insurance company. Because the last thing we want to do is go back to the seller who could be dead or doesn't exist or impossible to collect from.
Right.
So, title insurance, it's a must-have.
Indeed, I agree.
Okay.
I agree. That couldn't have been said better.
Thank you. Well, Drew, thank you again for coming out.
You.
Drew's
thank
with
you.
Enterprise Title, located out in
Worth Illinois.
coming up. I want to say thank you very much, and thank you, Drew, for joining us
Thanks so much.
tonight. Take care.
Take care.